Let's talk about Dumbo, easily one of the saddest stories in Disney's back catalogue, and although most kids out there know him as the cool, happy, almost baby-like elephant with the big ears that can fly, watch or read those early adaptations again nowadays, and damn, that's one pretty nasty tale. And I love it. Sure, I love me some new age Disney movies, they're all pretty incredible, I think we can all agree on that, but way back in the day, the Walt Disney Studios were releasing some rather experimental films that without a doubt just didn't think of the kiddies first. Go back and watch films like Dumbo, Pinocchio and Snow White nowadays and you'll see sinister underlinings that make them stand the test of time. Not just by kids or mad collectors like me that want them all, but by true historic moviegoers that like Disney animated classics with a dash of sinister injected deep into them. However, today not only are we going to be talking about the original Disney movie and the legacy that it left behind, but of course, because this is Slope's Game Room, we're going to be looking at every single video game related to Dumbo too. Yep, Dumbo surprisingly has a fair few more games than you may expect. As always with these licensed games, they're not always great, but hey, that's the way it goes. You know what I think? I think it's time to jump right in. Hi everybody, I'm DJ Slope from Slope's Game Room and this is Dumbo, the History and the Games. When we look at Disney's earliest movies, you obviously have Snow White, the first ever fully animated movie that cost way more than expected and took longer than expected, but obviously became a huge hit, winning Walt and his crew plenty of Oscars and most importantly putting the company on the map. But what happened next? Well, Walt's second and my favourite from this era was Pinocchio, and it didn't do as well. Next up was Fantasia, and that did even worse. Yep, the once great Walt Disney Animated Studios was already feeling the heat and it needed a surefire hit for their fourth movie, and they needed it badly. Anyway, one of the heads of merchandising came across a very new style of book called a roller book, where you would twist the pages rather than turn the pages, and the star of the stories was none other than Dumbo. Thinking that Walt would like his idea, he showed it to him in its prototype state, and indeed, he did like the story. In fact, he liked it so much that he instantly purchased the rights for it. The small roller book only had 8 pages, but still Walt was able to turn this short book into a rather short movie, clocking in at around 64 minutes. Joe Grant and Dick Humer were the guys who got given the project, as they had already worked together on the previously mentioned Fantasia. The script was quickly written and the chapters were read out to Walt, with each chapter ending on a cliffhanger. The new style of storytelling was intended to entice Walt, and it did just that, as storyboarding came shortly after. Things got moving incredibly quickly, with corners being cut at every turn, and the budget was that of only $950,000, and they got it under that, with the final cost being $813,000, which was about half of Snow White and a third of Pinocchio. The original plan was to make it into a short film, but with Walt being, well, Walt, he had grander plans, turning it into a fully fledged animated classic, with reductions in cost being stuff like tracing over the sketches used in the original storyboard. Quite impressive, I must say. RKO Pictures were especially unhappy with the runtime of the movie, demanding that he either increase the runtime, reduce it, or make it into a short film, or release it as a B-movie. He obviously downright refused all of these, and I for one am really glad he did. The story, as already stated, was a sad one, and this was intentional. The crows, yes, the crows, those crows that every new age person with an internet connection thinks are racist stereotypes, well, they ended up being animated after famous vaudeville dancers, and the interaction was based on Louis Armstrong and Cap Calloway. The famous Pink Elephants on Parade sequence was basically just Walt letting his animators explore realism, which they did tremendously, I might add, with the help of real elephants that got brought in to help capture the realism of, this scene in particular somehow. Thankfully, the Dance of the Hours sequence in Fantasia also helped at this part of the movie. When the film was finally released on October 23rd, 1941, it was an instant hit with fans and critics. Both Pinocchio and Fantasia had struggled, mostly due to the limited screenings of Fantasia and Pinocchio not being able to ship to European and Asian markets due to World War II. However, Dumbo, yes, Dumbo managed to pull back 1.6 million at the box office and has been a fan favourite ever since. It's also worth noting that this film was one of the very last movies that Walt himself was heavily involved in. He obviously helped with future films too, but never to this extent. And why was that? Well, if you have ever seen The Incredible Saving Mr. Banks, you will see that Walt treated his company like a family business, calling everyone by their first names and always just being around to help and or give guidance. But that family vibe stopped, however, when several of his workers went on strike during Dumbo's development. The reason for the strike was, as it pretty much always is, pay. It was reported that money earned by certain animators was vastly superior to that of others doing what many believed was the exact same job. Art Babbitt was one of those high earners, raking in a good $300 a week, whereas lower ranked animators pulled in a mere $12 a week. Quite the difference. Well, even though Art was one of those higher earners, he often spoke out against Walt, who saw no problem in this as he recently purchased a brand new spanking studio in Burbank for him and his employees. Art eventually started the strike and asked Walt to unionize his business twice, which Walt refused twice. This went on and on for 5 weeks. In fact, it went on until he did indeed sign a new contract and everything went back to normal. Except it didn't. According to the animators at the time, Walt himself very much took a back seat compared to previous years before the strike, and for some that can be seen as a good thing and a bad thing. You see, after this, the 9 old men, the legendary 9 old men that were essentially the core animators of the company, and of course are now acknowledged as Disney legends, almost became the backbone of the animation studios. As for Walt Disney himself, after Dumbo, well, it was never the same. So yeah, that's the history of the original movie Dumbo. Not only one of the saddest stories in Disney's back catalogue, move aside Bambi, but also in my opinion one of the most misunderstood. For me, the reason behind this is basically because of its legacy that it left behind, because besides the new Tim Burton movie, this character has mostly been seen as the face of the Disney baby brand. Obviously there's a lot more to the character and story than that, but considering the film is just so old school, a lot of people associate the lovable big-eared elephant as something that's very much aimed at toddlers. However, as an adult you feel a lot more sorry for the characters, you can relate to the torment of being an infant without your mother, or being picked on and having to build up the courage to stand out. This was why I was so happy when I heard that Tim Burton and of course Danny Elfman were teaming up to remake the story. However, early reviews have been mixed at best, not average, thank God, but from what I can tell you are either going to love the new Dumbo movie or you're going to hate it. Feel free to leave your spoiler-free opinions below whilst we look at every single video game related to Dumbo. Okay, so first off, and obviously, is the previously shown Kingdom Hearts cameo where you squirt water at your enemies. And of course there's the Power Disc collectible in Disney Infinity that lets you ride the same Dumbo ride found in the parks. Next up you have the usual DVD games that are on the disc as seen here, and a flash game called Dumbo's Hoopity Hoops.
This is it, Dumbo! Our chance to make big top history!
This is a very basic game designed to teach kids colours and shapes. It's not really that bad of a game for a kid, of course. The animation looks pretty good considering, and the voice acting is pretty spot on. Not too bad at all. Moving on, what is most interesting is another Atari 2600 game that yet again, just like Snow White, didn't see the light of day. Or did it? Let me explain. You see here we have Dumbo's Flying Circus, not to be confused with the Muppet-style Puppets TV show from the early 80s. This is a typical Atari game that doesn't have a lot going on, and is all about getting a high score so you can play as Dumbo and you need to fly around collecting these balloons before they hit the top of the screen. Otherwise, it's going to slightly shorten your playing area. Dumbo can also shoot clowns that rise to the top by shooting peanuts. If he misses, they'll ride along the top and drop stuff on top of you. It's a pretty good game, and in my opinion it looks pretty much finished, so it's such a shame that it never got released. Thankfully, in 2008 we finally got to see it. Well, not really. Here we have Dumbo Big Top Blaze. It's a pretty basic game where you move Dumbo left to right as he rises up a burning building, dodging clowns and fire on your way. When you get to the top, you make your way back down, collecting peanuts and flowers, which is what makes me think of the unreleased Atari game. Did the creators of this Flash game take inspiration from an unreleased Atari game? Okay, I doubt it. But again, this one actually isn't the worst game in the world. It does what it says on the tin, I suppose. It's worth checking out if you've got 5 minutes, and that really is all the time you will need to spend with it. And don't forget to keep trying. You know, lots of people with big ears are famous. Wait, what? Hey there guys, thanks for checking out the video. Firstly, I want to give a big special shout out to this video's sponsor, Player One Clothing, the best place to go for all of your movie or gaming related t-shirts and caps. Go and check out www.playeroneclothing.com if you want to go and see what's on offer. And if you want to support the show by purchasing the game that you see on the screen, then please do click the PlayAsia affiliate link below. It really does help the show. But a massive shout out goes to my Patreons, with a big extra big shout out going to that retro video gamer, Gary Pinkett, Mantis, Ryan Burford, Andrew Dalton, Jonathan Hayward, Tomek Grabowski, Christopher Turnbull, Brent Craft, Ben Jackson, Phil Lowlins, Mr. Vestek, Dina, Robertson Dunn, Lefty, Intrigued Gaming, Abby Morris, Tim Labonte, Asobi Quang, DX, Tim Lunn, Genovi, Hananaz, Pixels.Limited, aka Samuel Victor, Red the Beard, Conrad Constantine, Pretendo 64, Karimi Elephant, James Loveridge, Casey Garner, Blitz Hedgie, King Link Reviews, Retro Gaming Castle, Savage and Mr. Doe, Gemma at Mr. T-Shirts, Monster Finger Games, creators of Alien Scumbag, Mike H. Fell, Lucius Oftel, Yelled Hamburglar, Gregory Arden, Ronnie Method, SSWB, Solix Captor, Jeremy Rodriguez, Nick Pollard, Bram Perez, Marcus King Emo Cut Tyndall, June, The Geeky Dad, Richard Carter, aka Fantastic Dizzy, Todd Paul Float G, and Petty Mew. If you want to come and get your name shouted out, come and see what I'm working on and all of that usual stuff, then please click the link that you see on the screen. You can also join my Discord, where I am an official Discord partner now, by clicking the link below. And obviously if you want to join my YouTube subscriber base, then there'll be a link below this video for that too. Anyway guys, that's it from me. This is DJ Slope signing out, and hopefully I'll see you all next time.